Welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ospenskaya.
Thank you, Chris. It's a great pleasure to be joining you and our audience and to be co-hosting today's show.
Yes, we are delighted to be your host for today's show, and this is part 9 of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 5, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, as well as produced by Architects of Music.
This collaboration, we are very proud of collaborating with these wonderful organizations and very artistic people. What drives those collaborations is incredible passion for connecting musicians and audiences in real-time musical performances and news from around the globe.
Now, back to the Scherzo. The rambunctious trio has disintegrated, and we slide back into the shadowy, mysterious return of the Scherzo. However, Beethoven continues to innovate now. He continues to write musical history in the form of this Fifth Symphony, because instead of a literal repeat of the Scherzo from the top after the trio, Beethoven now reimagines all of it. And in doing so, he creates a totally creepy skeletal version of it. The powerful horn march now becomes this. It's spectral. Did you hear those fleeting, wispy sounds in the violins and violas? Very difficult to execute, especially for a full section of players. And it's impossible to overestimate the effect this passage would have on German Romanticism of the era, especially the rise of Gothic supernatural literature, poetry, opera, and the overwrought imagination of French composer Hector Berlioz, whose Symphonie Fantastique would rely heavily on this music for inspiration. And Beethoven's novel extension of the Scherzo, which we heard before the trio, is now reduced to a mere outline, a desolate landscape of pizzicato strings and haunting nature sounds from the woodwinds. And now we encounter what many consider to be Beethoven's absolute masterstroke of innovation in this symphony. Not long after Beethoven's death, Hector Berlioz described this upcoming passage and its effect on an audience in Paris. He said, quote, "At that moment when the orchestra seems to be taking us from a subterranean cave to a temple of the sun, the shouts of acclamation, the cries of hush, shh, the clapping, the convulsive laughter exploded with such force that the orchestra was buried beneath the torrent of enthusiasm and disappeared completely. The entire audience was seized by a spasm of nervous excitement, and not till it subsided were the players able to be heard." And here's what he was describing. Beethoven's signature rhythmic motive is dying away in a pathetic whimper in the bassoon. It's now taken up by the timpani on the note C, the tonic note. As the music settles into this unearthly calm, and below, the cello and bass sustain an A flat. And talk about architecture in music. The symphonic model was 4 separate movements, each movement a complete entity unto itself, until now, as Beethoven's creative powers began to reach their height. And the ghostly scherzo gradually, organically evolves, a bridge directly into the blazing glory of the finale. And the reputation of this symphony as an embodiment of darkness to light is based primarily on this dramatic, groundbreaking transition. As the timpani softly sound the motive, and the scherzo theme begins to rise in the first violins, but minus its first and last notes, like so. And Beethoven extracts those last 3 notes, and he repeats them. The timpani now increase its pattern into continuous quarter notes on C. And the cello and bass leave their long A flat, and they begin a rhythmic pattern of their own that revolves around the note G. G, while above this, the fragment of melody in the violins also revolves around G, like so. G, G. So they're both, the cello and bass down below and the violins above are both involved in a figure here that is rotating, that is circulating around the note G, like so. And it interlocks rhythmically. Let me play it slowly. For this very brief moment, Beethoven has captured something of the profound nature of music as it exists in time and space, the physical interaction of levels of sound and their gradual alignment. And the second that the timpani and the basses lock into the same rhythmic pattern, softly, softly, at that very moment, the first violin's fragments begin to stabilize, and they become a continuous flow now, with the intervals of the motive expanding upwards, like so. Here's a minor sixth, a major sixth, a seventh, a higher seventh, an octave, a higher octave, a higher octave, until we reach this wide open elemental chord, this amazing progression from darkness to light, often imitated, never equaled in the history of music. Here it is. The finale, a festive celebration, a hymn of triumph, and also a standard sonata form with a coda. But it includes one very unusual event right in the middle of the movement. And even though the themes of this finale all function as required by the sonata form, their character suggests a series of fanfares, marches, even patriotic songs, all in Beethoven's heroic style of the period. Exactly what is needed after the intense drama of the preceding movements.
Wow, that's just brilliant. I mean, I've heard the symphony before, but to have it described like that really adds an extra dimension of my understanding.
Absolutely takes you much deeper in the depth of understanding of what it means and how it's created, how it's constructed.
Yeah.
The architecture, I think, is a key word in here. Beethoven was very much an architect of his music, and so much thought. When you just listen to that piece, to that symphony, you just follow it emotionally. And of course, we have a very simple explanation. Why is it so engaging? Well, because Beethoven is a genius.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to be genius? Beethoven didn't write this kind of symphony well in diapers. It took him years and years of developing this kind of insight into levels of the sounds, into the structures, the rhythms, and how to put it all together so it communicates in such an extraordinary, powerful way. Just like Larry Rapchak said, that this particular transition from darkness to light had been imitated by many composers, but never equaled.
Yeah. I love how there's two things he highlights, right? Obviously, there's that amazing transition from darkness to light. You know, he talks a lot about how he uses techniques compositionally, whether it's the bass line or how it moves and different motifs. But the other thing that he talks about is this haunting nature of instrumentation, which has influenced other composers like Hector Berlioz, and these sort of the way he uses pizzicato, the kind of way he uses the woodwinds, and it provides such a romantic feeling of solitary within, like solitude within nature, like the lone tree or the abbey within the oak trees that, you know.
Exactly. And our team created those images to accompany that explanation. I think it absolutely brilliant. You see those skeletons, almost like haunting, Halloweenish pictures in there. And of course, before you can transition to light, you got to create the actual darkness. And the way Beethoven creates it, you would think darkness, okay, let's use brass in the lower registers. No, he just deprives the music of all the other colors other than snippets of the sound, really spaced in different ranges. And it's just an incredible emotional impact of deprivation. So what is darkness? Darkness doesn't necessarily mean pressure. It can mean deprivation. And by really making it very skeletal sound. And I like how Larry makes the parallel with Gothic and maybe even goth, like today's style of it. And interestingly, the colors also in the film, the way our producers created it and the filmmakers created it, how the colors play out. When the darkness is created, it's not all black, but it's in that color scheme and color spectrum of really almost feels like the whole life is sucked out of the music and the visual of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I also like how Larry was like, this is the quote. He kind of anticipates what's going to happen, and he says the entire audience was seized by a spasm of nervous excitement, and not until it subsided were the players able to be heard. Can you imagine being in a concert where everyone is so uproarious and seized by their own emotions within the concert that you can't even hear the players, And this is something, like an audience experience that I don't think we hear as often. Maybe in some jazz concerts where that might happen, where audiences are allowed to sort of speak or talk to one another. But in a classical music concert, like to have this sort of atmosphere, that must have been incredible.
Well, it used to be that the audience was very much more part of the experience and expressing the emotions and participating in the music. It's just in the course of the past century, the regimen of concert going became so stabilized, I want to say even rigid. You have to follow a very prescribed way of behaving at a concert, and any deviation from it is perceived as lack of being cultured. But it wasn't always so. And in Beethoven's time, the way audience interacted with the music, especially with the new music, was a lot more free and welcoming for the audience to express, to get out of the seat and, say things and gesture and be part of it. Very much like today's pop or rock concert, I would even say. And Beethoven's music was written in such dramatic ways, and he also incorporated so much of newly incoming instrumentation. I mean, he included so much brass in there and percussion and all of that. Probably, I mean, I can't speak for two centuries ago, but probably the parallel of going to Beethoven's symphony being presented at a concert is less of a classical music concert experience of today and more of a rock band experience, don't you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, as we mentioned in the last episode, it was premiered among so many different pieces, and so I don't know how long is a rock concert, but also I think what's interesting is that it speaks to the kind of world of when the music was premiered, and I think Beethoven understood music in a way that was obviously incredible, but he also understood the audience. He also understood what was important to transmit to an audience. I think it's probably evident to him that certain pieces that are premiered just don't do anything for the audience, and some pieces did a lot. And so he, maybe thanks to Haydn as well, with the way that Haydn also interacts with his audience within the music, I think he understood that there are certain things, certain ways to compose, certain ways to surprise the audience. And you look at the way filmmakers are trying to use that. You feel like there's a certain dialogue or there's certain scenes that, okay, that seems normal, and suddenly there's something that totally catches you off guard. And I think this is sort of why these, I guess, whether it's filmmakers or composers are called masters or the greats, is because they know how to tell a story, or they know how to lure you on and then surprise you and give you these unexpected moments of brilliance. This whole idea of transitioning from the third movement to the fourth movement via some amazing transition that is likened to, when you're reaching for something until the sun finally comes up. When you're climbing, as you're hiking, you're not sure when you get there, and finally you do get there. And it's just this moment of release. I think he attributes a lot to the human experience, and he writes to that. I think that's what makes it brilliant.
Yeah, and I want to also bring up the visual experience of watching the program, this film created by our team together with Lawrence Rapchak. Of course, one can just listen to the Beethoven's music and appreciate it, and one can just listen to the lecture by Lawrence Rapchak. But as we all know, over 90% of the information we as humans perceive and absorb through visualization and through visual stimuli. So I was part of creating these films, not in a very creative way, more of managing the production. But it's been a while since we finished working on this particular symphony. This was one of the early productions in this whole project, and now rewatching it again, I come to appreciate all anew the incredible synchronization of visuals as they illustrate and support the story. I don't want to say anything about people who make films about music and they are not musicians, but I think there's some keen connection between those visuals and the story and Beethoven's music, and those visuals are connected in a more intimate and more coherent way because the makers of those films are professional musicians. Now, this crossbreed of musicians coming into other fields and learning additional skills and trades and like filmmaking, it's not a very common thing, but it's becoming more and more accessible to people, and I want to herald that, because when you bring a profound experience as a professional performer and educator and pianist, one of the filmmakers was a violinist, another was a pianist, another was a composer. So when you bring it all together in a film like this, at least for me, rewatching it was really, that sun shows up at the very right moment, just as the C major shows up in the symphony, and that bridge comes from the clouds of the visual on the screen right at the moment, anticipating that part of the story. And then I really loved one of those visuals where the pieces and bits and of different images kind of gradually come together and form a cathedral on screen. These are just, to me, incredibly engaging moments, which add to my ability to appreciate Beethoven's music. What about, how do you feel about this, Chris?
Well, I mean, obviously it's brilliant, and it's very important for the experience of an audience to see the music for what it is. Especially, I think sometimes the language of the music is lost within our modern world, and so whilst the people in the audience of Beethoven's premiere might have understood the music and the language of the music to a certain degree, in our modern day society with all these different kinds of musical genres, it's really important to have a way to understand the music, not just visually, but also within the rhetoric of the music. And so with these visual aids, I totally agree. Our team has done an incredible job. The thing that I bring home or take home with this is that I think it's important for musicians to be a part of different processes, like you said, not just in their profession. I think they can bring a lot of great good to other genres and other things, and it makes their experience just really incredible for us to experience. So we have one more part coming up, which is two more parts actually, which is the finale. And I think the finale is one of the most glorious finales written, especially after the trauma and the despair and the grief and the anxiety of the other movements. And so to have this, I can't wait to hear what Larry has to say about the finale. And we already heard a little bit of it, because there's no way to cut it all of a sudden. Because
we did a little peek preview of it. Yeah,
because I mean, the way that Beethoven wrote it, there's no way to even stop it. There's no break. It just goes.
It goes straight into the bridge, and then into the sunlight.
Yeah, and so again, a big hand to our team and our collaborators at New Media Productions and Virtual Concert Halls, as well as Architects of Music and Lawrence Rapchak. We have an incredible team at Virtual Concert Halls, a lot of whom are part of making this actual film come alive. And if you want to collaborate with us, if you want to do something similar, this is something that we definitely offer and have available. We are so proud of our team, and yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and our team is interested and excited, and looking forward to hear from you. If you have a project which you're thinking about putting out there, and you want someone to collaborate with you on a production, on the visual, on the film of it, we are very, very interested. And just please don't hesitate to shoot us a message on virtualconcerthalls.com, soundexpressivecompetition.com, progressivemusicians.com, and many of the other projects for musicians are also available on callorchestra.com. We are a pretty sizable team, and we do many different projects, especially because we collaborate with many organizations around the world. So check us out if you're looking for the next step in your performance career, or in presenting your newly composed music, or in creating films like this. We would be very happy to hear from you.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll see you next time for part 10 of our Beethoven 5 documentary series. See you.
See you next time.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.